And welcome to the Pride of Detroit PODcast, prideofdetroit.com, Pride of Detroit on Twitter, Pride of Detroit on Facebook. You know where to find us. Download the PODcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, iTunes. Waiting for Jeremy here in a second. He's going to reveal his gorgeous.
I'm just waiting for a proper intro.
You're waiting for the proper intro. Okay, well, first off, let's talk to the people and tell hello, folks. We are live on Twitch, and we are here. We're going to tell you what's up on this podcast. We've got a big mailbag for you. Before that, we've got plenty of comments from Dan Campbell. I got asked multiple questions about Dan Campbell. And when someone asks someone as insignificant as me about something Dan Campbell said, it usually means that Dan Campbell said something that is important enough that we will all talk about it. And plenty of that involves the draft coming up, including quarterback and other positions, things we've been treading for a while. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, I'm Chris Perfett, the adequate host, at Chris Perfett on Twitter. Also live over at twitch.tv/NoDecaf now, DEKAF, for these pre-shows we've been doing, which have been a lot of fun. And that brings us to Jeremy Reisman, fearless leader at Detroit Online, and Mr. Tie-dyed Technicolor mustache himself. Mr. Has his camera still off. Mr. Bisected colors mustache. Just turn on the kit. Let's see this.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, yeah, that silver really did not come out well at all.
It didn't come out as well as I was hoping, but yeah. Thanks to everybody for, first of all, not a visual medium, I understand, on the podcast, but as a reminder, we did this all because we raised over $20,000 during Movember. So
that's right.
There you go.
$20,000 split between Prostate Cancer Foundation and RAIN,
yes.
Rave Abuse and Incest National Network. Every November, we grow mustaches. We do Movember. We do our own charity drive. This year will be no different. Yes, we raised a lot. And unfortunately, Jeremy had the great idea last year of dyeing his mustache blue. This time he tried to do a silver and blue for the blue and silver for the Lions. And I don't think the silver is coming out the way you thought it would come out.
It's not. It's more like, you know how the Lions kind of messed up the numbering system of their new uniforms. This is kind of what happened. Like we rolled this out thinking it was going to be a nice and vibrant silver. It's really more of like an old man dyeing mustache. So
it's not even that. You just got like silver. You got like gray fox going on here.
A little bit.
It just looks like you just got some gray hairs coming in. It did nothing.
Which was already an issue before I even started dyeing it.
Yeah, I was going to say. Ryan Matthews. At Ryan_POD, the third man. League champion himself. Hello.
I dyed my hair once. Hi, Chris. I dyed it blonde.
I did that too in high school, I think.
Yeah.
I tried to do like streaks, highlights.
Frosted tips?
No, I wanted like spots in my hair for some reason.
Okay.
It was the 90s, right?
We were all trying weird things.
Yeah, we were. Yeah. I settled on a goatee instead, and I'm not sure that was the right decision. Wow, this got really sad all of a sudden. Just sitting here all very sad and depressed. No, we got plenty to talk about on this show. Should we just get right into it?
Let's do it.
We've got a lot to cover from Dan Campbell. So, as I said, Dan Campbell was in the news. He had to sit down. We got to hear a lot from Dan Campbell the past week. He answered a lot of questions leading up to the draft on the 7th. And we're going to go over some of that right now, because usually I tell Jeremy a lot, I don't usually like going over the pressers like every podcast if we can help it, but I feel like some of these are very insightful as we look towards the draft. And I think the big one, Jeremy, right off the bat, is quarterback. Campbell, of course, turned heads a little bit when he said that don't really need an elite quarterback. And I'm trying to find, do you have the exact quote up? Once again, my bookmark just completely vanished.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's like, so the question asked to him was, do you believe you need a star quarterback to win sustainably like Mahomes or Allen? And he says, no, let me try to do it, Dan Campbell. No, I don't think you need that. I think, boy, you love to have that type of player because they can improvise. There's things they can do, and they can improvise with their eyes downfield, so they can run your offense, but they're going to do like what they need to do. They just understand it well. They know their reads. But if something just kind of isn't right, they got pocket mobility and they can break it, but their eyes are downfield. Those guys are going to hurt you, not just the pure runners. It's the ones that can always kind of just keep looking for the next play while moving away from you. I think those guys that are obviously they're special and certainly they can give you a better chance, but no, I don't believe you need to have one of those guys to have sustained success. And he says, looking at long-term vision to ID for the struggling and long-term vision, basically, when do you expect to take a quarterback? It's like, now the right guy is sitting there at the right pick at that position, and let's do it. But we like Goff, and I like where he's at. He finished strong. Keep adding pieces, and then wherever that is, next year, is it this year, 2 years from now, and the right guy's sitting there, then you figure out a way to get that guy. You figure out a way when it's the right guy. So obviously, of course, the big question not answered is whether or not someone like Corral or Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett is that right guy. But it's an answer, I feel, Jeremy, that's very illuminating, that I think we can, even though there was a few mock drafts this week that had the Lions taking from the national media hat with the Lions taking Malik Willis at number 2, it feels like the Lions themselves are giving hints that maybe they're not leaning towards Malik Willis. Who knows? Some of it might just be smokescreen at this point too, towards trying to get a team to trade up for Malik Willis or Corral or whoever it might be. But I don't think they'll go quarterback.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've kind of been reading the tea leaves in that direction for a while, but, you know, hearing Dan Campbell talk is interesting because I don't think he's very good at lying. I don't think he's very good at throwing up smoke screens. I think he's a very honest person that's going to give a very honest assessment. But I actually thought he answered the quarterback questions well enough to at least leave a little mystery because, I mean, you just ran through that whole quote about needing an elite quarterback. His answer was basically, no, you don't need one. But that was at the front and the end of his answer. In between was about 5 sentences about him talking about how awesome it is to have an elite quarterback because he can do this, he can do that, he can make things incredibly easy. You can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that, you can do that, you can do this. But no, you don't need it. Like his whole answer was basically describing why you do need one, but at the beginning, at the end, he's like, no, you don't need one. He never gave any reasons why you don't need one. So I think that's illuminating. I think that enough tells you that he knows Jared Goff needs to be upgraded at some point. But then the other quote that you threw in there, the whole like, let's build a team, and then when that quarterback is there, we do everything we can to get that guy. And if the Lions were going to grab one this year, I don't think he would say something like that because you don't need to do a lot to grab this guy. Like, the guy's already there. You have the 2nd overall pick. Jacksonville's not going to take a quarterback, so you have a shot at the best quarterback in this draft, and so you don't have to throw the kitchen sink to get him. He's just there in your lap.
And sometimes the kitchen sink doesn't work. Look what happened with the Dolphins. They wanted to move heaven and earth to get Joe Burrow that one year, and the Bengals said, no, there's no price that you can ask to get Joe Burrow from us. We're taking him number 1.
Sure, but the Lions have some draft capital. They can always dig into future draft capital, so if they like someone really in 2023, not only do they have those 2 first-rounders, but they can dig into 2024, and they can dig into 2025 if they have to. So, and it sounds like they're prepared to do so, which to me is actually a little bit comforting because I want them to be aggressive with quarterback when they're comfortable with a guy. And I don't know, everything I read into this seems like maybe they're not that into this draft class, even though they know Malik Willis really well, even though in the same, you know, media session, Dan Campbell did say some nice things about Malik Willis and even Sam Howell a little bit too. But yeah, if I'm reading the tea leaves right now, it seems to me like we're heading more and more in a direction that does not involve a quarterback in the first round.
Ryan, how does that make you feel?
Well, again, I'm not too sure how transparent Dan Campbell can be. I know that he comes off that way, and I think for the most part, right? Like, whenever Dan Campbell's in front of a microphone, his authenticity comes through as him being honest. And he was pretty honest here, right? And like you said, Jeremy, he starts off with this, like, you don't really need an elite quarterback sandwich, but the main ingredients all in the middle were like everything that makes a sandwich good, right?
Give me a salami.
So I found that kind of interesting, but 2 things, right? Like, one, he just spent so much time in New Orleans where Drew Brees wasn't that mobile guy, right? Like, and the Saints had success without a mobile quarterback. So I see that and I buy that. the other part of it is how 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 out there can you be with your love of a quarterback? Because I think that even Jacksonville would be willing to trade out, right? Like, I don't think you can be so transparent about like, yeah, there's some quarterbacks we really like in this class, because I mean, there's a team that can move up to one real easily. Like,
Yeah.
I think the Jaguars would be willing to move back if they had, the right opportunity, and the right trade came across Trent Baalke's desk. But I think those two things, like, it's not a shocker that Dan Campbell, doesn't think you need some mobile quarterback in the vein of Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson or somebody else like that, because he just spent all those years in New Orleans with Drew Brees.
I mean, we
And
just saw
yeah.
the Super Bowl won by Matt Stafford, who's not even like a Tom Brady type of pocket passer. He's the old fashioned gunslinger.
Yeah, and there's something to that level of mobility, right? Because I think that Stafford's mobility is similar to Aaron Rodgers in the sense that they know when to escape, and Aaron Rodgers is a little bit better at it for sure. But like,
Sure.
he picks up more first
But he's
downs with his legs, but
he's not trying to make plays like a Russell Wilson or a Mahomes with their legs. I don't want to say primarily, but you know what I mean. Like, when you see Wilson or you see Mahomes scramble, you know what I mean. That's different from when Rodgers or Stafford has to like get out of the pocket.
Right.
You brought up an interesting point that I wanted to bring up too, which is like, do you believe there's any case of the Lions just kind of trying to obfuscate their interest in a quarterback here? Are they playing coy? Like, there was the article I put up on Pride of Detroit today about Hugh Freeze, the Liberty coach, who was listed 6 teams that he thought were expressing a ton of interest in Malik Willis, and the Detroit Lions were not one of them. Do you think it's possible that the Lions, at the Senior Bowl perhaps, learned everything they needed to learn about Malik Willis, decided in that moment this is probably our guy, and just shut it down from there? It's just like, let's not talk. We're committed right now. That's our guy. We want to make sure no one jumps us with Jacksonville, and just, we are going to play to the media. We're going to play we're just going to play everything super cool about this quarterback class, and see where that takes us.
Well, because the inverse is true as well, right? Like, if they keep their lips sealed and they don't say anything about Malik Willis, whether or not, here's the thing. I think I agree with you, my short answer, in the sense of, I think the Lions learned everything they needed to learn about Malik Willis at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Nothing about the pro
That's
day
true.
was going to sway them. Nothing about anything is really going to sway them about Malik Willis. But I think that the Lions they can benefit just as much by saying nothing about their interest in Malik, because, hey, if Malik isn't their guy and a team trades up to number 1 and gets him, perfect. Then the number 1 guy on your board is right there.
True.
Probably Aiden Hutchinson's
for you.
right there.
Yeah.
You tricked the Jaguars out of Aiden Hutchinson at that point.
So yeah, I'm off it, Jeremy. I'm off it. It's
sorry.
not going to happen.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
We're still going to make arguments for it, because I do think there are legit arguments for Malik Wilson number 1. It's not my current preference, but I do believe, like, if you think that guy can develop into the high level prospect, and that's another thing that I found interesting from Dan Campbell. He was asked, are you confident in this coaching staff's ability to develop a young quarterback? And he said, oh yeah. And that's where he went off about Ben Johnson again, called him a rock star, said he's been around all these coaches who've been around guys like Aaron Rodgers, a guy like Peyton Manning.
He talked about Mark Brunell, who obviously played quarterback in the league for a few years, and he's, talked about, he understands fundamentals, game plan, everything. Like, they've got a staff in place to develop a guy.
And Brunell, actually, before he came to Detroit, every spring he would go down to the combine and mentor. He was a mentor for 5 years to quarterback. So it's not like he's been out of the game for 10 years. He doesn't know how it works anymore. He knows what's required in this league. And so, those comments, if you have a developmental guy and you believe in your coach's ability to coach a guy up, well then, there aren't many other questions with Malik, right? Like, it's just, can he develop those skills? It's a big question, but if you believe in your coaching staff, you've got a guy who's, everyone agrees is a fantastic leader. Everyone just kind of, he's a magnet to people. He draws people in. And so I get the argument there. It's a very, very high ceiling and high value potential out of number 2 pick. And then you look at everyone else, we're still arguing over the same guys because there's no, I think that's the other big point. It's like there's no consensus guy that they'd be passing on for Malik Willis.
Yeah, there's really no consensus right now. I think for me, the argument, and I got asked several times about the mocks that had Willis going number 2 to Detroit. And to a man, most of the guys I talked to thought it was insane for the Lions to take Malik Willis at number 2. And then I asked him, okay, but it's great for Carolina to take him at 6, right? It's great for Atlanta to take him at 8. It's great for the Saints to keep trading up and try to take either pick 5 or 4 or 7. So what fundamentally changes? I asked, and I'm laying this out, by the way, as not someone who wants to see the Lions take. I need to be clear about that. I'm not arguing for the Lions to take Malik Willis at number 2, but I guess one thing I miss in a lot of these conversations is why is it okay and a smart move at number 6 for Carolina to take a quarterback that will be developmental for a few years, but it's not okay for Detroit to take him at number 2, where he will also be developmental for a few years. Like, I don't understand what trigger is being, what switch is being flipped between those two. I understand that there's good edge prospects on the board, and that's a great argument right there. But the key thing is that quarterback is a position in the NFL that is irrational when it comes to its value. You need one, period, hard stop at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter how many picks you have to give up to get one. It doesn't matter how much you have to pay to retain one on your roster long-term, see Mahomes' contract. And it shouldn't be rational at quote unquote positional value or a big board where you are in the draft. If he's your guy in that draft, you get him regardless of when you pick in that draft. Just because you pick 2 instead of 6 should not be a psychological, like, complete change. Like, I
don't disagree. I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I think
this is the only position I would say that for, though. It's quarterback. Right. It's that damn important.
And
that you just have to throw logic out the window about positional value.
And especially if we're just talking between 2 and 6, because I don't really think there's that big of a difference, especially in this draft.
Not in this draft. Yeah.
When, I mean, we keep hearing it, like, it's a bad year to have a top 10 pick because all these guys have a lot of question marks. And there's an argument I think you made last week, Ryan, like, if you're in a room of guys with question marks, why not take the quarterback who has the biggest upside?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of this kind of funnels into the discussion, or where we take this discussion in terms of like positional value, right? Like we've mentioned that a couple of times. Yeah. And I think it was interesting what Dan Campbell had to say about positional value. And to that point that I made the other week, Jeremy, like if you have a bunch of guys where there really isn't a hierarchy within those top guys, I mean, does positional value, hold a lot of weight when making that pick at number 2? And Dan Campbell said, we're looking at every scenario because there's some guys that are ultimately, some might say, well, is the value worth it at 2? No, we don't care. All that matters is this dude is going to come in and play, and he's going to help us, and he's going to be a productive player for a long time in this league for us. That's what matters to us. So if positional value isn't really so much of a determiner of who the Lions are going to draft it to, that opens up an awful lot of possibilities at that pick. Yeah.
I mean, that's a bombshell quote. Like, I don't want to downplay that quote at all. Like, and Dan Campbell's smart. Like, I don't think he thinks
he's not going to take a punter at 2.
He's not going to take a punter. He's I don't think he's going to take a linebacker. I feel like he knows that there are premium positions, and Brad Holmes said as much the week before. There are premium positions in this league, but I do definitely think that opens up talk about, I mean, basically any of the guys in the top 10. Outside an offensive tackle where need isn't there, but like this opens up a door for you, Chris, and Kyle Hamilton. If we want to start sneaking in some cornerback talk, like I'm not completely ruling out Sauce Gardner either. It's very interesting, and yeah, it's an interesting philosophy, and I'm curious as to what your guys' philosophy is. It seems just like, let's just get the guy we're sure on, the guy that we know is going to be part of this team for 10 years down the line. And to me, like that very much opens up the conversation of Kyle Hamilton, who I've said time and time again, I think might be the safest pick amongst this top 5 group.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm noticing a lot of Lions fans kind of having an even more visceral reaction to the idea of taking Kyle Hamilton than to Malik Willis in some circles, just because it's a safety. And again, it goes to your point about positional value. And I mean, to your point though, Jeremy, it's the overall question of, is safety a premium position? Is it a premium player? And we've had these arguments before about it. I kind of veer yes. We talked about the Ringer article not long ago that talked about the growing importance of safety. And I talked with Bucky Brooks on Sunday. I know he does a lot of draft stuff. And one of the things he talked about was, you see where a lot of NFL defenses are going. A lot of the leadership is coming up the middle now. And he actually pointed to the 2014 Lions. He looked at, you looked at who were the leaders there. You had defensive tackles, Mike linebacker, safeties, James Ahedabo, Glover Quinn in the back, Ndamukong Suh up front, because pressure is now coming a lot more up the middle. Now it's ironic because Bucky was usually actually using that to a point to me to argue against Kyle Hamilton. He wasn't as high as on Kyle Hamilton as I am, because his argument is that all we've heard about Kyle Hamilton is the athleticism, not the leadership. But I don't know. I think that would be something I'd have to go back and watch some of the tape on. I think Kyle Hamilton is set up to be that kind of leader, but I totally understand that the emphasis on Kyle Hamilton has been athleticism. But to your point, he's probably the most pro ready, and it's hard to find a defensive back who's probably day one ready. We had this conversation a couple of years ago with Okudah, right. But Hamilton is the one guy who you can look at and say that guy has blue chip athletic measurables. And I think that's why you say he's probably the safest pick out there, because you look at the three edge rushers who I think most fans would want to take, and it's questions of which one of those guys is probably the best or second best of those three, depending on what Jacksonville does. And is second best enough to outweigh then going down to the second level versus someone like Hamilton, who is head and shoulders above the rest of the safety class by a good amount. Yeah. But the question for me too is obviously is Bucky's question is, can he also be that leader that you need down the line? I think he can.
So I don't know if it's just, smoke, or I don't know if it's just scout talk or whatever it might be, but I've seen some scouts talk about Lewis Cine being the best safety in this draft class. Now, I'm not sure how much weight I'm going to put into that statement. I don't know how much I'm going to believe it. I don't know how much I'm going to take it and hold on to it, but just the fact that there are little bits of that discussion happening, because for all intents and purposes, like when we had our conversation with Jeremy before the combine, it was, hey, Kyle Hamilton is by far and away the best safety in this class. There's a gap in between him and the next group, but there's so much depth in that next group. So I wouldn't.
There's a lot of depth. Yes.
I wouldn't be terribly upset, I guess, if Kyle Hamilton was the pick, if he's their best player available. But Jeremy, this is best player available, all gas, no brakes. Like what Dan Campbell's quote said was the best. We're drafting the guy that is going to be a productive player for a long time for us. Full stop. Like that's going to be our guy. I know, Jeremy, you're probably so thankful that there isn't a Saquon Barkley or an Ezekiel Elliott in this draft, because I mean, a running back might have gotten.
I mean, that does seem
not a two.
I have to imagine that theory holds for the rest of the draft, right? So when the lines are on the clock at 32 or 34, I am going to be shaking in my boots that Kenneth Walker is going to be the pick.
Well, I think there is one guy that Dan Campbell did speak on, as much as we can talk about Willis or my love for Hamilton, I feel like it will be edge. And I feel like there were some redeeming words for at least one guy among those edge that Dan Campbell talked about. And he maybe likes some of the other guys too, but we should probably take a break. We talk about them on the other side. Also, Dan Campbell had plenty to talk about on the current team as well, including a new position that he might have coined. I have not been excited for this innovation in football since Superback. The Lions are truly on the cutting edge. We'll be right back on the Pride of Detroit POD cast.